So yeah, he called, and he was able to get one of our first production. He didn't get a prototype, but he ordered a production instrument, and he got one, and he loved it, and then he got another one, and then he modified it, and then he was involved, actually very intimately involved with the development of the Space Cadet bass, our second bass model.
Yeah, he used to play one of those at the 12th-string version of that.
He was endorsed, an endorser of a very, very, very famous guitar brand, but he would use the instruments that he also liked personally in addition to the business arrangement he had with that company. He would bring his other instruments in during shows, like during encores and things. So he was able to play his own choice instruments in a small percentage of time during the shows. And he'd bring out a Space Ranger, and he'd bring out a Space Cadet, and I've got some recordings of those. And then he is the one who actually told me, he said, Matt, he said, if you make another bass, please, he said, if you make a long scale bass, he said, my favorite pickup choices are the 8-pole humbucker and the EBO style, what they call the mudbucker, you know, that neck pickup in the SG style Gibson bass. And I thought it was an odd combination, and they didn't match aesthetically. And he said, Matt, I'm telling you, that is the golden choice. And if I ever had an opportunity to have a bass like that, I would do it. Would you please make an instrument like that? And I said, Alan, absolutely. So if you see the 34-inch scale Space Cadet, which is my second bass design, that came out in 1999. That has the chrome mudbucker pickup, and it has that famous 8-pole pickup in the bridge position, and he loved it. And I remember that another moment that you talked about that was embedded in my mind. He got his instrument. We met on his tour bus outside of a show in Philadelphia that year. And I was talking to him and Johnny Neal, who was his keyboard player, a great, great keyboard player, and I believe also for the Allman Brothers. But at this time, he was with Government Mule. And so my interactions with Alan Woody had to do with his time with Government Mule and a band called Blue Floyd, which was an all-star Pink Floyd blues band, cover band. So I remember I was backstage with him and the Government Mule act for a show in Philadelphia in '99. And at the end of the show, I handed him the instrument right before the show. He looked at it, he played it for a few seconds, and his typical reaction was, "That's cool, man." And he was an interesting guy. A lot of artists, when they get a new instrument, they give it to their tech, and it doesn't matter what the brand is, the tech works it over and puts on their favorite strings and does their favorite setup, and they'll practice with it for a while. They'll get used to it, and they'll plug it into amps. And Alan and a few other performers I've met were not like that. And I can't blame the other artists, but he was a really seat of your pants kind of guy. I thought that he was a pick it up on the streets type of blues musician, and we spoke about that. And he informed me that he was actually schooled in music. He had a degree in music from, I think, Middle Tennessee State, and his mother was a music teacher. And he was a virtuoso. He played fiddle, he played mandolin, he played guitar very well. He was a bass player. He may have played other instruments. So he got this instrument at the first time he looked at it on the tour bus, and his tech brought it backstage, maybe, tuned it up. And for his encores, they had a long encore that night. He and Warren Haynes, he brought out the Space Cadet bass, his first one. And I remember hearing the thunder of that instrument in the theater for the first. I'd never heard it in a live venue. I heard it in our, in our warehouse, in our studio. But to hear the thunder and somebody like Alan Woody, who was one of the greatest blues and rock bass players of all time, to hear that live at that moment and the look on his face, he He was playing, and he looked at Warren, and he gave him a look like, how about that?
That was a 12 string?
No, this was a 4-string. This was a 4-string Space Cadet. And the 4-string Space Cadet came out before the 12-string. The 12-string was like the very next thing. So he was an advocate of that, and it was that pickup combination was what he wanted to hear on a 4-string bass. So he got that, and then he ordered a couple of others in different colors. He did some modifications to the finish, and he put some markings on them. And there are a lot of videos on the internet of him playing them. And there are also a lot of live performances that are just audio that are fantastic. If you want to know about the 12-string bass, I'll tell you more about that.
Yeah, so what about the 12 string bass when it comes to him?
Well, the 12-string bass, getting back to Tom Peterson,